is the Chief Information Security Officer for Norwich University. George teaches digital forensic and incidental responses in the on-campus undergraduate program and online graduate program. As the CISO for the university, George is responsible for managing cyber risk and the information security program. Prior to joining Norwich University, George worked for the Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineer Institute's CERT program, where he helped the federal government and the private sector mitigate inside threats. George also assisted the FBI with developing a digital forensic training program for over 700,000 law enforcement officers nationwide. Prior to joining CERT, he was an informational security, system security officer for the United States Department of Justice National Drug Intelligence Center. George holds a number of industry certifications, including Certified Information System Security, Professional Information System Management, Professionals GIAC Certified Forensic Examiner, and the GIAC Certified Forensic Analyst. Wow, George, you have a lot going on.
That's probably the tip of the iceberg.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you taking your time to talk about security trends.
Sure thing. Thanks for inviting me here today. Glad to spread the cybersecurity cheer, as I say. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So welcome everybody. Let me just go on to my next slide here. Thank you for that great introduction. If you would like to send me questions or anything today, or if you have follow-up questions after the presentation today, you can direct them to george.silowash@norwich.edu. My email address is up there on the screen there. So let's jump in today. I want to talk a little bit about the current cyber threats that I'm seeing today, mainly credential stuffing, different frauds, different scams that are going around, and of course, everyone's favorite ransomware. And as I talk about these today, I'll sprinkle some mitigation strategies that you can use to help both yourself and your organization defend against these types of attacks. We'll take some questions and answers if you have any as we go. So what exactly is credential stuffing? Credential stuffing is kind of a new term that's been thrown out there. It seems like all the new cyber terms out there are somebody comes up with something new every day. But basically, what credential stuffing is the malicious actors out there are bad actors. They obtain lists of usernames and passwords from other data breaches that have occurred in the past. Pick your favorite data breach. I'm sure we've all heard about them, and many of them either have usernames or email addresses in them, along with the passwords associated in these data breaches. And what the bad actors do is they try to log in to some secure portal, perhaps an online banking portal or an online email system, using passwords and usernames found in one of these data breaches, because people reuse passwords. Let's face it, I see password reuse all the time. It's a bad practice, and we'll get into why it's such a bad practice, and I think you might be getting a little taste of it right now. But people just out of habit, they reuse their passwords both for their online banking systems, their work systems. It happens, it's just human nature. We have too much to remember, and I'll get into some ways that we can help mitigate that here. So one of the big questions I always get asked is, well, how do I know if I've been part of a data breach? Some companies don't report data breaches either at all, or they wait months before they report them. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been part of numerous data breaches. I'd like to thank OPM for the Office of Personnel Management for one of the biggest data breaches that I've been ever involved in involved all kinds of data being lost about myself, including my background investigation, my fingerprints, and all kinds of things. So yeah, data breaches happen. The question is, when is it going to happen? It's not if it's going to happen, is when is it going to happen? But a lot of these data breaches make it out to the open internet before the organization even knows about it. Oftentimes, an organization doesn't know they have been breached, and it's often a third party who reports that breach. To give you a good example would be some of the recent breaches with credit card numbers and what have you were often reported by the consumer. The consumer calls their credit card issuing company, says, "Hey, what's this charge on my account for $1,000 some dollars or whatnot at pick your favorite retailer?" And they often reverse that charge off there, and then the issuing company does their own investigation, and they find out there's a rash of people who have had similar reports, and they correlate that data and they can backtrace it to determine where the commonality lies with that. And they often find it might be an online retailer, or it might be a store, or what have you. But other ways, hackers are constantly bragging about their data breach online. There's various deep websites that we see out there, or that my favorite to go to just look to see if there's anything that's been posted is Pastebin. Pastebin used to be a haven for dumps of credentials. They've cleaned up quite a bit, but there's other places that the attackers post their information online. So if you want to find out if you've been part of a data breach, you can go to the website called Have I Been Pwned? The address is down at the bottom there on the screen. And if you enter your email address, and I would encourage you to enter not only your company email address, but also your personal email addresses, every one of them, check and see. You might be kind of surprised or shocked at what you find. And what they do is this company, this is a legitimate organization. It's sponsored by, or it's run by a security professional who's been collecting this information and makes it just searchable. He collects data breach information and makes it searchable for people to find out if they've been essentially hacked, but not by their own fault per se, but by the companies that don't know how to protect their information properly, I guess you could say. So this service is great for the individuals, but there's also, I'm getting ahead of myself here. If you have been pwned or owned, they call it pwned in the information security or hacker community is what it's called. You'll see a screen like this. It'll say that you were involved in some type of data breach, and then if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see what breaches that you were a part of. 2,844 data breaches my throwaway email address was used in. So that's great. But yeah, you can check your own email accounts just by using this service. Now, if you're responsible for information security for your organization, they do have another service you can sign up for. It's free. And we actually use this here at Norwich to get alerted of any potential norwich.edu email addresses that have been part of a breach. It's a domain notification service. So they're checking for any email addresses that end in at yourorganization.com or .org, whatever it is. You can sign up for it. There's a few steps to do this. It probably takes about 30 minutes to do because it involves verifying who you are and verifying that you own that actual domain name. But it's a worthwhile service to have. That way, if anybody in your organization's credentials have been, or their email address has been used in a breach of some sort. It's not a it's not an indication that you've been hacked. It's an indication that that data has been used, or that data has been released in some type of data breach. And oftentimes what I find out is that it's employees who sign up for services using their personal information, but they use their work address or their work email address. So sometimes you'll get a hit in one of these, and it's nothing that the organization was contracted for or anything like that. It's something that an employee went out and signed up for an email address list, or is signed up for some type of online service using their professional account on their own. So, but still worthwhile service to have. So as I mentioned here, some things that your organization can do. You want to review your password requirements. Take a look and see what your current complexity requirements are for various services and various systems that you use. I typically recommend nowadays a minimum of 14 characters with a mix of case and numbers and symbols. This makes the passwords very hard to guess, but as you can imagine, it would also make it very hard to remember. One way to combat that is don't think of a password as just a password. Think of it as a passphrase or a sentence. I use a sentence for all my passwords. For my sentences, I think it's a minimum of, I think my current one that I use is a minimum of 26 characters with proper punctuation, capitalization, and I throw a number in there somewhere. That's a pretty strong password, and cracking that is going to take quite a bit of time, beyond what today's computers could do in the foreseeable future. I think once you get past 14 characters, the amount of time that it takes to crack that password, it goes into the billions of years. So yeah, as you add a character, it increases exponentially. So this is one that the next recommendation I have is require periodic password changes. And this is something that is causing a lot of controversy in the information security community today. Recently, within the past year or so, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, released guidance to say you shouldn't require a password change unless it has been compromised. Well, my counter argument to that is, how do you know you've been compromised? A lot of organizations don't know it, or they don't find out about it until months down the road. I require a password change at Norwich every 90 days. And that way, if a breach does occur, that password's only going to be valid for the 90 days. And oftentimes, most of them are expired anyway after a report of some type of compromise. That it protects I think it makes better sense to the company, to the university, or your organization to require this periodic changes. Then I lost something happened on my screen there. I apologize. One second here. Let's see. I don't know how that happened. That's what I get for clicking around on my screen here, I guess. My apologies. There we go. Sorry, folks. I don't know if anybody's starting to look at multi-factor authentication, or you're already using it. I'm seeing more and more financial institutions forcing it on customers, which I think is a great thing. And what multi-factor authentication is it's sending you that text message on your mobile device that says, enter this 6-digit code to log in, or click on the icon on the app, on your authentication app on your mobile device, or so confirming another piece of information, essentially. So multi-factor authentication really is just getting into another layer, or another way of verifying you are who you say you are. And it's a great tool to help mitigate some of these attacks. And if a breach were to occur and a password gets exposed somewhere, if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, that attacker is not going to be able to use that information because they require that that other piece of information to log in with their token. Security awareness training. A lot of people get training in everything else when they get onboarded to an organization. They get training on how to do their timesheets or how to do various tasks within an organization. But I am a strong proponent for security awareness training. In fact, I require all employees to go through security awareness training within 30 days of coming on board to the university. And then they have to take mandatory refresher training every year. This has helped significantly. To give you an idea of how well it has helped, before I came on board to the university, the phishing click rate was, I'm sorry, it's a phone ringing here in my background. The phishing click rate was it was through the roof. It was over 20-some%. And once I implemented security awareness training, and I even phish Norwich employees on my own. I test them every month to make sure that they're practicing good cybersecurity skills and whatnot. Our rate eventually dropped to 1.9%. So it does work. You just have to be vigilant about it, and offer it to everybody at the organization. Anybody who has a logon account should be taking security awareness training, and keep that training fresh in their minds by offering it different ways too. I put out a security awareness newsletter every month. I have posters that hang around campus, just different little things. And we use a service, or I use a service to phish the employees. It sends out automated phishing emails, which is kind of entertaining. But I get reports back when somebody clicks on the link, or and when they click on the link, it takes them to a page that shows them what they got wrong, and how to avoid doing that in the future. So it offers additional training. And finally, for here, I recommend an enterprise managed password manager. So what I mean by that is I use a password manager myself for my own personal accounts, because I have way too many passwords to memorize. I'm not sponsored by any particular company, but I'm going to highly recommend LastPass, because I use LastPass and I love it, and it has a family capability. Where you can set up a family account, and you can share commonly used passwords with other family members, like Netflix account password, things like that. It's a very cool product. I only have to memorize one password now, and that's the master password to the password vault. And it will generate complex passwords for you as well. And store them automatically. There's very little interaction that you have to go and retrieve a password. They make a browser plugin. There's also a feature on you can download an app for both iPhones and Android-based devices. It's just a great product. They also make an enterprise version of this, so a company could use a product like LastPass to manage passwords for their employees. So if you find that you are having multiple passwords that you have to memorize, and they're getting written down and put on a Post-it note on the screen, a good way to get rid of that is to use some type of managed password manager. There we go. Phishing. Everybody knows what phishing is nowadays, right? I think we've all been phished. And they're getting worse. Yeah, they're getting more complex. The attackers they're getting better at their game, I like to say. and it's really not going to let up anytime soon. But you know, phishing is basically just a type of social engineering attack where they're trying to get you to give up personal information of some sort. You know, we see this in email. I've also seen instances of what they call smishing, which is through SMS messages, or vishing, which is through a voice call on your phone and whatnot. Try to get you to say some type of sensitive information or collect some type of sensitive information. But the most common form is usually a link in your email. One thing I'd like to caution organizations about is the use of personal email while at work. Logging into personal email accounts, mainly because those personal accounts don't often have the same type of protection that our corporate email has. Our filtering and additional layers of protection there. So what I've seen a lot of is people logging into a personal email account and then clicking on a link in their personal email. And that link can often take you to a bad place, especially if it's a phishing email, collect sensitive information there. So you want to be careful about that. You can't just outright forbid it, because it's just not going to work, and you're going to cause an uprising. But you can encourage employees, you know, check their personal email maybe on their phone, or you know, so not their corporate computer though. That's my recommendations there. There's some other things you can do too, but and we can discuss that offline if you like. Spear phishing is one of the worst ones though, I think. Spear phishing is targeting a particular person within a company. They might be targeting the CFO or the CEO, or they might be pretending to be some type of high-level executive in a company, or a director, or some type of manager, and then they go after their subordinates. And I'm going to walk you through an attack here shortly. I'll show you how this works. But the spear phishing attacks take a lot more time to do for the attacker. They go out and they collect as much information about their target as possible. They use social media. They often use the organization's website. The company website can be a big tattletale sometimes. You know, if you have your company directory listed out there and who reports to who, that's something you might want to reconsider, because the attackers use this information against you. Corporate filings, those are often public information, and there's not much we can do with that. But it adds another way for the attacker to collect information. So the spear phishing emails tend to be more believable. Here's an example, and I like to pick on Professor David Blythe at Norwich in all my presentations, because he just seems to be the target of a lot of spear phishing attacks. But here you can see this is an attacker mimicking David Blythe, and there, if you see here in the email address, this is coming from a Gmail address. You see that here at the end? And although it has the dblythe.norwich.edu, that's just to make it somebody who's looking at that email address real quick say, oh, this is coming from a Norwich address, you know, and it's targeting one of his subordinates. And, you know, they send an initial email in similar to this that says, are you available? Or are you on campus? This one's a little bit more tricky because it's coming from a privacy-centric email provider, protonmail.com. If you're familiar with them, they're a Swiss company, and they value their customers' privacy, and it's very hard to get any type of records or information out of them. But ProtonMail is a legitimate email service, though, and I use them for privacy and secure email. So, but what this typically leads to is they'll follow up with another email. If the person responds, they'll say, I need you to go to the local store and buy me gift cards. I'm in a meeting right now. I need to get these visitors some gift cards for doing some type of thing for our organization, and I promise to pay you back as soon as you purchase them. And once the target purchases those gift cards, if they were to do that, they'll ask them to scratch off the back and email them the numbers, and then poof, their money's gone and they're never going to get reimbursed. So that's one of the common attacks that I've seen. We've implemented some technologies through our email provider at the university to reduce these types of emails getting through our system. But they do happen. And the problem is they're coming from a legitimate address. But Gmail doesn't know this is an illegitimate person, or Google doesn't know this is an illegitimate person. So it's very difficult to block those types of things. Our most other common attack is CEO fraud. Typically, we're seeing a C-level executive or manager is either targeted, or they're using their likeness to trick HR or accounting into performing some action. Typically, this is a wire transfer. Or they release some type of tax information. And then that information is then used to steal the employees' identities and whatnot. So as I mentioned before, email filters, they're not going to catch everything. They're not going to catch your personal email unless you're me and you have really extensive personal email content filtering set up on your home machines or in your home email servers and whatnot. It's not going to catch everything. We have what I like to call zero-day phishing emails. And these phishing emails, they often have, sorry, I had a messenger client still running in the background here. These phishing emails often have a convincing look to them, and they try to make the attacker or make the target give up some additional information. But they're not known to any type of phishing filter or to any type of some type of filtering service, I want to say. And that filter is not going to catch them right away. Oh, let's jump into what an attack looks like. This is an attack in an organization I was called in to help with. I do a lot of forensics for organizations, not only in Vermont, but also elsewhere. And oftentimes I get involved with these types of incident response. And it's often through phishing emails. Typically how these things work is a malicious link, or a link is sent in that takes you to a malicious website. It could be targeting any employee within the organization. The attacker is looking for just somebody to click. They want a way to get into that company somehow. Oftentimes they don't care if they're a manager or a C-level individual. It could be anybody. It could be the janitor. They just want a way to access that company's email systems. What I've most recently seen in many of the incidents that I've investigated is it's usually a document that's hosted in somebody's personal OneDrive account, or even the attacker's OneDrive account somewhere. Or it's somebody else's compromised OneDrive account that the attacker has placed a malicious document in. They're also using Google's document reader to obscure malicious documents, and they're really looking for ways to make the attack seem very convincing and disguise where it is coming from. So the better they can do that, the more success that they're going to have. Here's an example. This is a document that was concealed using Google Reader type of PDF reader type service that Google offers. This looks like a document that, it looked like a web page when you viewed it. And if you click on the link here, it takes you to a Microsoft Office, well, an alleged Microsoft Office 365 sign-in page. I blocked out the address here at the top, but this was not Microsoft. This was some compromised domain or malicious domain up here, and they spoofed Microsoft's login page. So once you were to enter a username and password here, the attackers get that information immediately. Once they have that, the attacker then prepares their attack. They usually log in as that individual to their email system, and they begin to put rules in place on their email account to block all new incoming messages and just dump them to the trash can. They'll also use that email account to send out their attack. That attack looks like something like this email. This was an example in an organization I was called in to help with. It was an offer for part-time work. They blasted this out to the entire company directory. Once they're into the organization, they have access to your global address list, so they can then send out mass email to everybody in your address list. So that can, if you have in this organization here, it was a very large organization. Getting, I think it was 3,000-4,000 emails went out with this in here. Notice there's no link here though. What this email did was it encouraged people to apply for the job by sending an email to that address that you see here on the screen. That email address was used to collect information about people who were applying for this position. What we saw was a lot of resumes being collected. So resumes have lots of personal information, right? Once you applied for that job, they also wanted you to provide your cellular number or your cell phone number, and they would text you. The attackers would text you and say, "Hey," and they would collect additional information about that individual. They then would. So this job was this was an advanced payment scheme. Advanced payment scheme is basically, hey, we're going to pay you in advance for doing something for us. Here's the money. Take the check to the bank, cash it. Oh, we overpaid you. We need you to send some money back to us. Well, it led to a check like this. So if you notice here in the bottom, the malicious company, we'll call it, here at the bottom was some sports and entertainment company. But the check that was received was from ExxonMobil. The check was drawn on ExxonMobil. So not only is ExxonMobil, a victim of this, the routing information and the bank account information was correct down here for Exxon. The attackers ask you to deposit this check into your account, and then they want $1,200 or so to repay for these. What they're asking you is put decals on your car and drive around, and they want $1,200 back to pay for those decals. So not only you out that $1,200 that you sent them, the bank is going to come back a few days later and say, hey, this check's no good, and now you're out whatever additional money that you've spent too. So fortunately, people saw this check and thought something was funny when they saw it was drawn on Exxon, and they didn't cash that check, but still an interesting one. Another scam I'm seeing is, I'll get to an example here in a sec, but here's basically the scheme. As soon as the scammer, as soon as you receive that check, they actually, when they mail these checks out, they put UPS tracking on it. Oftentimes they'll send them next day air. And as soon as it's delivered, they know it. And they'll ask you, hey, I see you got the package, go cash the check. And as soon as you cash that check, they want to know about it through text message. So they're getting, they want their money. It's not even their money. So yeah, this just outlines this one particular scam that I've seen. There's others out there like this one. This was another advanced payment scheme asking you to go around and shop at various stores and complete some type of review, secret shopper review of the store. The survey is, you mail it in, it goes nowhere. But they're giving you a check for, in this case, $2,250. You go cash that, and they want you to send them something back for overpayment. It seems like a simple scam. It's been around for a long time, but there's been recent upticks in this. I haven't been able to put my finger on why that is, but it's going back to the old check fraud. One of the things I think is leading to these types of attacks is data breaches. Data breaches are being used to target individuals and target companies. One of the big scams that's out there right now is unemployment fraud. With everything going on with COVID-19 and whatnot, unemployment is up, and the attackers know that, so they use data from a data breach to go apply for unemployment benefits for people at a company. I've seen it happen to a number of organizations within Vermont. So yeah, it's hitting home here in Vermont. Some ways that your company can protect yourself. We use an external sender notification on all incoming emails. So any type of incoming email that's not from a norwich.edu address gets this nice banner slapped at the top of it. These are effective. They can be annoying to some employees. I will say that, especially if you're on a mobile device, because the first thing you see is just this, and you don't see the message. But it raises awareness, and people have stopped, clicking on links in those emails, or they send them to me and say, "Hey, is this safe?" And that's what I want them to do. I want that awareness to be raised, and I want people to be aware of what's going on out there. Be careful what you click on, and trust your instincts. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. In this case, that advanced payment scheme, that raised all kinds of red flags with me. Some people it might not, because they don't know. But I try to use recent attacks on organizations that I've been working with to raise awareness of what's going on out there and show them how these things work. Know what information is available about yourself online. Have you ever Googled yourself? I know it seems kind of weird to do that, but I often go out there and do that myself and just check to see what information is available on me out there. I actually have a Google alert set up so that anytime that my name appears out there on a page, Google will send me an email and it'll show me where it appeared. So it's just a good way to find out what information is being published about you out there. And sometimes you might come across a data breach that you were part of, your email address. You can create a Google alert for your email address showing up somewhere online. It just gives you an idea of where it appeared. And if your company does give annual security awareness training, do it. I'm asking for all for all CISOs out there, on behalf of all CISOs out there, please. So finally, are we okay on time? Or I think I'm a little bit over.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, I can hold off on this here now, or if you need to run, I completely understand, and I'm available through email too. But I can just I think I only have one slide here, one or two slides.
Okay.
Here,
Yep. Continue.
Okay. So ransomware is an attack that's been around for a number of years. It's basically encrypting your data, and you have to pay to get it back. Oftentimes, you're not going to get that. You're not going to be able to recover it. If you pay the ransom, you're not going to. The attackers aren't going to give you the decryption keys. Sometimes they do, but it's far and few between. You're rolling the dice really when you pay them. Um, these attacks are now becoming more complex, and they're oftentimes run by organized crime rings now. They even offer customer service. I'm not even kidding. You can whenever you become a victim of one of their attacks, you can contact this web page, or you can call this 800 number. They have numbers that you can call, and you talk to a live person, and they'll help you. They'll help take your money and potentially give you the decryption key. And I've even heard of some attackers who have they'll email you a receipt, and on that receipt will be a discount code for a future compromise. If you're ever compromised by them in the future, you can get X amount off your next unlock code. This is going on. It's an organized crime now, you know. Backups. I cannot stress backups enough here. Even on your home machines, on your organization's machines, backups. If you have a backup, you're able to get your data back without having to contact anybody. With backups, you also need to be careful about the cloud backups and versioning control, and making sure that it's not backing up the encrypted documents too. So make sure you have different versions that you could revert to. One thing here that could help you is cyber insurance. Sheltered Harbor is for financial institutions, including credit unions. I'm not sure if your members are aware of it, but it's basically cyber insurance for financial institutions. I was browsing their site the other day, and I only just became aware of this through one of my colleagues who works in the Vermont financial institution, and she recommended this to me. And it looked like a low-cost type of cyber insurance. It all depended on total assets, I believe, if signing up for it. Many cyber insurance providers require you to have a certain level of baseline security controls already in place, or attest to them on a regular basis. For example, many companies who get cyber insurance might have to say, okay, we are following like NIST 853 standard security practices, and we have different policies and procedures in place. And then yearly, you have to attest that you're still following those practices. So some quick closing thoughts. Cyber attacks are continuing to become more sophisticated. The criminals are always looking for new innovative ways to attack us and our companies. Work from home situations are definitely making this more difficult, because I think it's creating a false sense of security for many employees. We all feel safe and secure in our homes, right? And we might not be we might not be following the same practices we would follow while we're at work. And that's what can cause the most damage to an organization, is when we let our guards down. So keep your guard up. Practice the same things that you would do at work as you would at home. And thank you for your time. I'm sorry I ran over on that. I didn't realize how much I was going to get into that. I hope it was valuable, though, for everybody. You're still on mute. Oh, there you go.
Nope, that was good information, George. If anyone has any questions, I do know James put in that they use Beasley breach response for their cyber. And so I made note of that so that I can do. But this was really good. I've heard of a lot of these attacks, and it's really scary about how creative those fraudsters are, and how we have to really be on guard and keep watch with every email that comes in, every text message, every phone call. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it certainly is, and they're not going to let down anytime soon, because there's always money to be made.
Yep. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for attending. And like I said, it is recorded, and I will be sending it out to everyone.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a great day.
too. Bye.